book I have for you guys today is Memories, Dreams, Reflections. This is the semi-autobiographical work by Carl Jung, and the reason I think you should read this is not just to get a better context of Carl Jung's life, but the overarching idea of Jung analyzing himself. You are literally getting a sneak peek into one of the greatest minds, especially one of the greatest philosophers, analyzing himself and fixing his own problems. And I think this is something that if you start looking into, if you start studying, can have great impacts on you, because most of us know that there's something wrong with us. Like, even if you're a healthy person, even if you're a functioning person, there's still things that bother you. You still get stressed out. You still get worried. You still have nightmares every once in a while. And being able to tell what the source of this is a very powerful tool, because once you analyze the problem, then you can go about fixing it. But if you're walking around in the dark looking for whatever it is that you're trying to find, you're probably not going to find it. And this book does a really good job of illuminating how to do this, because you're literally reading one of the greatest minds talk about his experience from a troubled youth to becoming the pillar of psychology that he eventually was when he was in old age when this was being written. And the story of this book, it started off as a biography and basically became an autobiography, because sections of these things he wanted to tell himself, sections of this book he really just felt like telling his own side of things, not having someone else write it. And I think some of these really paint a clear picture on exactly who he was and exactly the kind of person he was, because Jung was very much unlike Freud in the sense that he was willing to be wrong. He was willing to admit where he was wrong, and I think this is his greatest strength, because to me, the ability to understand where you're wrong gives you a leg up on everyone else. This goes back to the trial of Socrates. Socrates was the wisest man because he knew how dumb he was. And that might sound paradoxical, but at the same time, like, where when your biases are getting in the way of your judgment, then you can start getting over these biases. Then you could start seeing the person objectively. You could start treating the patient as they need to be treated, not as how you think they need to be treated, because we view the world through our lens. And when we can see the world through someone else's lens, this is when we can help them out the best. It's really, really, really the greatest skill that you can have, the idea of perspective, the idea of looking through someone else's shoes. And I really think you're going to get this through osmosis through this book, because most of Jung's early work was him just stumbling around, him just miraculously having some weird occurrences that made him look much more capable than he was. But by the end of it, Jung was a master. By the end of it, Jung was someone that could completely get beyond his own ego and start to actually help people, start to actually, cure people in the manner that they needed to be cured. And, some of the most interesting and compelling stuff in this book is Jung's early relationship with Freud, Jung's early interactions with Freud, and how that really set the course of his life. Because if you're unfamiliar with the story, basically Jung and Freud, Freud was, I think, probably 20 years older than Jung, maybe older, but he was already a well-established figure, and he basically took Jung under his wing and wanted him to continue exactly the same beliefs as him. And then Jung defiantly wrote The Psychology of the Unconscious and basically severed their relationship. And once that moment was over, it basically split two ways in the psychological world. And it's really interesting to see someone go out on their own, because he basically had the keys to the castle. He basically had everything in the palm of his hand, and if he had just sit down and shut up, he could have been remembered with the likes of Freud. Because Jung is pretty much forgotten today because of his weird beliefs, because of how out there some of his ideas are, because how you can't empirically prove a lot of his theories. And he could have had all the fame and glory he wanted, but he knew there was more. He was willing to forego responsibility to be right. And that's one of the coolest things about him. He was willing to find the truth even at the expense of himself. And this is something that you see Freud wasn't quite capable of, because Jung was willing to help Freud out. Jung was willing to analyze Freud. He was willing to open up the book that was Freud's life and start to help him. But Freud was unable to, because he wanted to be seen as an authority. He didn't want to be seen as someone that had weaknesses, someone that had neuroses, someone that went through this world and struggled with anything. He would rather be seen as the mythic figure that he was in the psychology community, and he didn't want to get beyond his own biases. And I think it's just a really cool book from this context, because what you'll really get from this book is the ability to read books such as this, because this is something that's written for a scientific mind. This is something that's written to prove a theory. This is something that's written to give you a context of the life of Jung. And armed with this book, I think you can pretty much read anything else by him. And I'm going to continue to go over books like this. I'm going to continue to suggest books like this because I think Carl Jung has some of the most inspiring ideas when it comes to the mind. I think if you start studying his stuff and start applying it to yourself, start analyzing your own dreams, start looking at the memories that are popping into your head and understanding how they are holding you back, understanding how they are affecting you in today's real world. Like, it's some really fundamental stuff that can break down a lot of the barriers that you're dealing with. And I'm gonna probably suggest you pick up this book, the Undiscovered Self, and what is it, Man and His Symbols. And those are the first three I would start with. But honestly, any book you're gonna like with him, but it's just how much you're gonna be able to take from him. And if you read this one, if you read Man and His Symbols, if you read The Undiscovered Self first, I think they're all really, really good fundamental works that are going to give you the context you need to basically run with the ideas of Jung. But I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.